welcome to this month's edition, Memorable March. I was thinking about why is it only one day of the year that to celebrate a woman when actually there's still so much to do for a woman to be recognized, heard, and be understood. So I wanted this month to be memorable, reflecting. What can we change? What perspective? How can we show up a little bit differently and support one another along the way? I was inspired by my sister's conversation. The other day over dinner, she asked me, she goes, "Hey, Kirts, do you have any of the transcribes of the conversations you had with our uncle about our family's roots?" It got me thinking about how many stories we heard about my grandfather and how much is lost about my grandmother. See, not many people are aware of this, and this is very personal, but my father was actually the first son to be born outside their country of origin, well, from the state of Sindh. But during the partition, my family had to cross over in what I came to understand much later as the horrific train ride. Now, our family never really spoke about it, it was almost glazed over it. And so, by doing these recordings, I wanted to find out more about our family roots. I was very inspired at how much my grandmother had to shift everything from one day to the next, get on board with my grandfather, and then later on, raise not just my father and take care of my grandfather's family as well. For me, her story of resilience, I wish I knew more. Now, the other thing not many people are aware of is that my grandfather also had another partner in Curacao, which we fondly know her as Oma Edme. What I only recently discovered by having a conversation with Oma Edme's daughter, Auntie Sita, and my mom was that both these beautiful women sat down and shared tea together. While one did not even speak a word of English and the other did not speak a word of Hindi, to have tea for one another, to me, was an expression of a woman's strength, her resilience, her expression of love and compassion. To me, this speaks volumes about a woman's potential. Both these women have had very different lives, but have been an inspiration to the way I accept myself as a woman. This leads me to the lineup of podcasts. I'm so excited to share with you some of the women who've inspired me in the last few years. I also wanted to reflect the importance of a man's voice in raising a woman's voice. I had put out a survey, and one husband had contacted me nominating his wife to speak as a guest on my podcast. And that just was such a beautiful surprise. The second person who I've invited to is a dear friend of mine who I've known in the public speaking sphere. But I asked him to talk to me about life through the lens as a father to two beautiful daughters. I look forward to sharing these with you. So, what else is going to be happening at Kirtana 168? In line with International Women's Month, I thought about how it's still so important to raise a woman's voice in her profession. You see, as a woman of different cultures inside, it's not very easy to grow into the leadership roles. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration. First of all, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but a woman's is constantly having to choose between her family and career. The system is still not flexible enough for a woman to be able to navigate both these buckets. The second reason why I wanted to do this Elevate Your Presence course is because of heritage. I was inspired by delivering courses for some of the prestigious organizations. And one of the things that stood out, having to speak with a lot of women from different backgrounds, is that they had to reconcile their different heritage to be able to communicate in the workforce. Sometimes they weren't sure how to formulate or express themselves and what were the boundaries or the barriers. And in Elevate Your Presence, what I'm trying to do is bring both of this together so that it supports a woman not just in her mental well being, but also in her communication style and grow her visibility to where she wants to make it happen for her. Now, finally, one of the things that I'm excited to also share is something I've been playing around with in my mind, and this has been inspired by my dad again. As you may have noticed, my father was one of my mentors, and he kind of pulled at that entrepreneurial spirit that I did not know was inside of me. And I want to support other women too. It takes a lot of courage to go down the entrepreneurial route. I also had a lot of women sending me a message, "Hey Kirti, I want to pick your brain," or "I'd love to be on your podcast." And when they did come on the podcast, they were pitching themselves and lose the point of the beauty of podcasting or being a guest on a podcast. So I was thinking, okay, well, how do I make this work? How do I support the person, but also make sure my listeners get valuable content? But also, how does that help me grow in my own career? And so by thinking about this, I thought, why not? For those who do want to be on a podcast, support them with one-to-one coaching sessions, prep them to be guests on a podcast, record them, and let them share their tips and values with the audience. And of course, that is what makes a brilliant network. This idea wasn't original. It actually came from the guests I did invite on my podcast. And because they're not used to speaking on a podcast, I prepare them beforehand, support them in finding their stories so that when we do the recording and the conversation feels more at ease for them. Now, I look forward to sharing all this stuff with you throughout the month. One last thing, I'm going to be flying out to Curacao. One is to give a retreat, and the second thing is to give a keynote workshop at a charity seminar. And if you are in Curacao, please do join. I would love all the support I can get. But also, I'm able to step back into that role where I get to share all my knowledge with the community that does capture my heart every time. I look forward to connecting with you throughout this month. Have a wonderful, memorable March. Take care.